Happy New Year. At this time of year, we're looking at new opportunities and what technology you need. So I put together a special interview with two people, Phil Gerbyshak and Modro, to talk about what you can use in technology, what to be aware with cybersecurity, how to prevent unnecessary intrusions into what you're doing, and to know what's coming up. So we all went around the table there virtually talking about what's going on. You're going to want to take notes on this one. Get ready for a wonderful time here as we talk to Modro, Phil Gerbyshak, and me, Terry Brock, on technology you can use for the new year. I'm Terry Brock. This time of year, we get a chance to look at how we did the past year and look forward. And one of the key areas is technology. You know me, I'm kind of a geek on technology and like it for productive purposes. And so I've got two of my best buddies in the world joining me right now. We have the lovely and charming Modro joining us from her offices up in Portland. Sierra, good to have you with us.
Thanks, Terry. Good to be here.
And we also have the lovely and charming Phil Gerbyshak joining us from his office over in the Tampa area. Phil, how you doing, my brother?
What's up, Terry? It's great to be here, man. That's the most recent time I've been called lovely, so thanks for that.
Well, yes, indeed. Lovely and charming, too. We throw that in at no extra charge to you today because a holiday special that we have. But we're going to talk about technology. And so those of you joining us, what I've done is I've asked these two wonderful geniuses to help us on tools and technologies they're using and some that they consider the best. Now, we've got about 500 billion for each of us, 500 billion tools and gizmos and gadgets. So they really worked hard. I said, okay, come on. I know it's going to be tough, but you're going to narrow it down to just a couple, like two or three or so that we want to look at. And I thought how cool it would be to kind of walk around the virtual table here with the three of us sharing, okay, here's something that's worked for me. And our rules were it could be either a gadget or an app, or it could be a website, or it could be a really cool idea of something new that's happening and something going on. And so we're going to talk about what they have. I've got some as well. And Sierra, we're going to let you go ahead and get us started. Ladies first here. What would be a really cool technology that you have found that works, that has been really something that rang the bells of joy in your heart in 2016 as we move toward 2017?
Well, actually, the thing that rang the bells of joy for me this year was actually the introduction of the iPad Pro with the pencil. And one of the things that I've been doing this year is when I got my iPad Pro, I basically closed the cover on my laptop and I haven't opened it since. I've been using my iPad Pro as my primary computing device for the last 5 months now, I think. So one of the things we were chatting about before we started the recording is that I'm actually doing this recording on my iPad. Most people would do this on a laptop. I do everything that I can on my iPad because it is such a fast and capable system that I can do that. And it's so much more portable and easy to use. So that's been the thing that's really been making me joyful. Then Apple put the little cherry on top of my hot fudge sundae by including the pencil. And for me, I've been writing on screen since Microsoft introduced the tablet PC in 2002. So for me, that pen-based input is just huge. And I really missed that.
Yeah. Question. I've always had a little bit of a challenge when I write on the screen of this part of my hand right here. If I'm writing like this part of the hand gets on there, and I think the technical term is smudges it up. And so how do you get around that smudges it up problem?
Well, the difference really is the pen technology. The iPad Pro, the pencil technology, is an active pen technology, which means that when the pen comes close to the surface of the screen, it actually turns off touch. So when you rest your palm on there, it can't do anything because it's only reading the input from the pencil and the point that is on the screen. So that's an active technology that requires special hardware both in the screen and in the pencil itself. And that kind of active technology keeps you from having that um, bad recognition, the wrist on the top of the screen, all of that goes away. And that requires that active technology, though. So that was one of the innovations that Apple finally came out with in the iPad Pro, was that active pen technology. This is not just that dumb stick on the screen where you're going to make stray marks everywhere.
Exactly. Dumb stick, not allowed. No, we don't want that. We instead want that, do it in there without the smudgy effect. I think there's the technical term again, that smudgy thing coming in there. Very good. Excellent.
They've
Phil, how about
copywritten,
yourself?
I think,
What would you
Smart
recommend?
Stick, Terry.
What's
I was
that?
going to say they copyrighted Smart Stick technology, right, for the iPencil.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
I like it.
So, yeah.
That sounds good, because I know I'm using a lot. I'm using actually something similar, but we've all seen these little styluses. No big deal. There's a bunch of them out there. And I use this. I love it. Love, love, love it on my iPad, particularly. I got the mini iPad, and I read a lot of books. It's just nice to tap on it as I go through a book, and I'm tapping on the right side so I can turn the pages fast and move around, so I keep from using my fingers and putting on there, doing that. Oh, here it is again, the smudge up effect. And then you have to carry one of these. I'm in my office. Let me reach over and grab one of these little cloth right here to clean the screens off, and all of that. So I use this thing a lot. It's amazing what you can do with it. But with this little thing right here, it works for me on that.
If you're into that kind of the entry level, shall we say, entry level input using the pen, then I would actually highly recommend stepping up to the Adonit Jot or the new bamboo Wacom bamboo stylus. Both of those are basically they're a smart dumb stick. So they will work on any iPad, because they're still imitating your finger, which is basically what all of the basic styluses do.
Right.
But it allows a very fine point, because they have some intelligence inside the pen itself that allows it to use a very fine point, and you can actually see what you're writing much more precisely than you can with most of the crayon style inexpensive styluses.
Seems like that would be a good application when we all three, and I know many people watching this, attend a lot of conferences and seminars. And so we're taking notes, we're writing down. And sometimes the note you want to take is not necessarily the words, but it's that diagram, or you want to draw something real quick. It seems like that would be better in that area as well. Would you think so?
Oh yeah, it's totally brilliant. And if you're using the right application, then you actually get an additional benefit there. For instance, when I was using before I got my pencil and before I got my iPad Pro, when I was using the regular iPad, there's an application from MyScript. I have to look at the exact name of the app, but there's an app from MyScript for note taking that actually will turn on turn on the bottom part of the screen for palm rejection, so that you can still rest your hand on the screen and write, but it ignores all input on that bottom part of the screen, so that you can write on the top part and it knows what you're doing. So there are some applications that are a lot smarter about taking handwritten notes than others, and it really makes a big difference when you're using the right kind of app.
Excellent. Thank you. And on behalf of all the people who attend seminars and will be taking notes in 2017, we appreciate that. Yeah. Phil, we're going to move from Portland down to Tampa and ask you what technology you have looked at that just rings the bells of joy in your heart.
Well, I don't know if it's joy, but it's certainly of holy cow, this is going to be very different. And that is what LinkedIn is doing now since the Microsoft purchase.
Ooh,
I think there's a lot of possibility there. So first, depending on when you watch this, you may already have the latest interface, the latest user interface, or you might not yet. So either way, LinkedIn is totally revamping their user experience, which for many people, if you're a LinkedIn expert, well, that might challenge you. But for most of the rest of the world, I think this should make things a lot easier to find. So there'll be a lot of things that you can do. There'll be a lot of things, though, now that if you need to think, if you're making money with LinkedIn, or if you could make money with LinkedIn. So if you're using it for sales, if you're using it for lead generation, if you're using it for marketing, you likely now will need to pay for LinkedIn in order to do what you used to do. So they're changing some of the search opportunities in there. They're changing some of the operands. You used to be able to do more Boolean searches. Those are kind of changing. So a lot of changes with that purchase between Microsoft and LinkedIn. And some say this may be the first trillion with a T, $1 trillion company, which is pretty exciting.
Trillion with a T. Wow. I don't know about you, but where I grew up out in the country, we called that serious money. And it's pretty important that I say, matter of fact, Phil, I know you follow this a lot in the work you do with your clients, helping them in a lot of business to business application, the B2B. Do you see more of a trend toward it's okay, not everything is going to be free. If you want the really good stuff, you've got to pay for it somehow. Do you see that as a trend?
Absolutely. That's probably the biggest trend. When I think about 2017 just as a whole, we've been so used to just free that now that we have to pay for things, we're like, how does that work? But that's the way that it should work. If you're doing work, you should expect that it's going to cost you money. I mean, why should we be making money on the backs of all these free organizations? So we should be, we're going to be paying for API access. We're going to be paying for, to do deeper data discovery. It's great that Facebook and LinkedIn have gathered all this information, but to mine it out, I mean, a garbage bag should be free, right? To put garbage in, that shouldn't cost us anything, and that's still going to be the case. But when we're going to mine it out and we're going to pull things out of it, and even if it's something that we think might be free, like looking for a job, we need to realize that there's still usefulness there. There's still utility, which is going to cost us money. So yeah, B2B organizations, I think we're going to see more flattening across the board. We're going to see that there are licensing that's needed because really people think LinkedIn is a website. It's not a website. It's a SaaS product. It's software as a service. It's always been. It's just that you don't install it. That's the only difference. So yeah, absolutely. I think B2B, if they don't realize that, they will very soon, early in 2017, as Microsoft and even Apple become behemoths in the subscription software space.
Yes. Well, Ira, go ahead.
In my opinion, that's a good thing because if I'm paying a company, the company will be there next year. And that's one of the things I think that we've gotten so blasé, so comfortable with these free services because we don't have any skin in the game. We're not really caring whether or not they're around 2 years, 3 years, 10 years from now. If a company really wants to be in it for the long term, they have to make money. And if I'm making money based on their products, I should be willing to make sure that business stays around. So I'm actually happy that a lot of these services are turning into paid services because it shows that they're getting a little bit better business savvy, and it shows that they're really looking at what it's going to take for this to be a long-term viable business, not just something that's got a bunch of angel investment.
Yeah, I think it's a very good point. It's called being grown up about it in a way. And we're also saying, okay, value for value. I think we see it a lot with people, say, for example, speakers that might speak for free. That happens, I've heard sometimes. And if you're getting started, yeah, that's a good way to actually market. We know that. But it comes a point where they're doing it just for the experience doesn't really work. At least, I don't know, Sierra, does this work up in Portland? Here in Orlando, they want green dollars or a valid credit card when we go to the grocery store. Does it work that way in Portland also?
Yeah, actually, it's been really disappointing over this Christmas season. Every time I go to take products out of these stores, they keep making me pay for them.
They don't say, oh, but do you have any exposure from great speeches? That just doesn't quite cut the mustard.
Nope, it doesn't.
Yeah, so I think Phil, you raised a good point.
I got 31 likes, Terry. Come on now. I want to trade likes for groceries. Isn't that how this works?
Yeah, exactly. Likes for groceries. However, speaking on that same thing, something I wasn't even going to mention one thing, but it reminds me, I made a trip over to Amsterdam recently and got a chance to attend a conference on a product now that's out there on the net called Steam. And steamit.com is their conference where they pay you to create content. You write content and people vote on it. If they give you enough up votes versus a down vote, the up votes, people like that, and you earn money. I've got several friends that are making money. I got a buddy of mine, he's making about $500-600 a day writing his content. putting it together. Another one that made like $50,000 over about 5 weeks or so working with Steemit. It was because people said, hey, we like this. We are voting for it. And they have made some changes. It's a new site, relatively a year, not quite a year old, and they're adapting and adjusting, and the money is then paid in Steam currency. And there's a whole thing to it. We don't have time to go into all of it, but I would just suggest those of you that are watching this, look into Steemit. That's STEEM.it.com. Steemit.com, and you'll see what's there and all kinds of articles, and you get a chance to see how good is it, and people will vote for or against it. People have made contributions, advertisers have put money into it, and then as you do more, you can earn the Steemit dollars and then vote for others to encourage them. So then they would vote for you, and it becomes something that grows. Think about it. All the content we produce and put on platforms like LinkedIn, like Twitter, like Reddit, like Facebook, etc., we don't get paid for it when we write that stuff, and Facebook is the one that's getting paid for it. LinkedIn is getting paid for it, but we're the ones that are writing it. And so now there's a couple of services, Steemit being the biggest one right now, that's starting to do that kind of thing. So Phil, I appreciate what you're saying. It's a trend that's moving in that direction.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, and the more Microsoft gets embedded with LinkedIn, the more they touch each other, the more valuable that is. So folks need to really start working hard to, if they don't want to participate in that economy, and that they need to export their data and be safe with it now, because pretty soon it's probably going to be too late.
Yep. I like, pretty soon is probably going to be too late. I like that. That's a tweetable, my friend. I like it. Well, having said that, I want to show you one of the tools that I got. Earlier this year, I got my little camcorder. Now, this is the Panasonic, and just so you can write this down, those of you that have pen and paper, remember those things, or you want to type it in, you can do that too. It's the HC, as in Hotel Charlie, WXF, as in Whiskey X-Ray Foxtrot 991. The nice thing about this one, very lightweight, easy to use. I've used this in several conferences, several places where I go and I can record the speaker. Even in a large group, I was the MC for a group. We had about 2,100 people at Freedom Fest. And so I would go when I would introduce people, and then sometimes I'd go to the back of the room, or I'd have Gina in the back of the room recording me. And we got crystal clear video because it will use, as you can see there, 4K. So 4K resolution, or you can set it to be 1080p or whatever you want. You can put it in there. And I get this, and the zoom on it is incredible. And those of you that are watching this, I was telling Phil and Sierra before we came on, we're here in Orlando, and from our balcony, we can see the Orlando Eye, which is the world's largest Ferris wheel. So we can see that spinning around there over on International Drive. We call it I Drive here. And so, but I can zoom in on that from our balcony a mile and a half away and read the letters on the cable cars. It's like, oh my goodness, this is in goodness land. It's like, wow. And you get that kind of resolution. Now, you definitely need a tripod, because even the slightest little turn on that makes it really super bouncy, and you wouldn't want that. But with a tripod and with a little bit of care, you can do a lot. Bottom line is, for those of you that are going to conferences and you want to record something, you can get beautiful video with this. And then I would also recommend, I'll kind of put this as part of the same one, I got a little shotgun mic. I got the Rode mic. This is a very popular brand of microphones. This is the shotgun mic. It has a little cable that you plug into the external microphone slot on the camcorder here, and I'm able to get audio that is surprisingly very, very good. When it's coming from the back of the room, in that very large room we were in, we were over at Planet Hollywood, and in the back of the room, all the way to the front, coming through the house sound system, it sounded good. Now, it's not as good as if you were holding your microphone right here. Now, this is good quality audio if you hold it like that when you want to record. But if you can use this, it can work really well. The bottom line, it's a great way to capture video that I've done when I'm listening to someone and I want to give them some extra social media juice. With their permission, I record them, and then I get this. I go, hey, you ought to hear what Sally Schmerkelmacher said, because Sally Schmerkelmacher is really smart about this and this, and listen to what she said here at the Oozy Woogie conference that we were attending, or something like that. So those are a couple of things for me, the nerd gadget that I am, right here, the camcorder and the Rode microphone can ring the bells of joy in your heart. So,
So
Sierra, we're
Terry,
moving back up to Portland now as we go around the table here. What else do you have?
well, first I have to ask, how long's the battery life on the camera?
The camera, the battery life is, I think, about 4 or 5 hours. And so what we do is we have a thing here. They have this, which is really kind of nice. It gives you the ability to release it. And I
Mm-hmm.
found out that there's kids over at Amazon that will be willing to sell you more than one of these. And so what you do is you, as that one runs dry and it goes, oh my goodness, I'm out of here, Terry. I go, never mind. You go over here and put your brother in right next here, and we let him operate for a while, and then you charge it either that night or there's ways
Mm-hmm.
you can charge it sometimes on the road. But it depends
Pretty
on the
cool.
resolution. It depends on what you're doing. And I got the big fat one here too. You know, I like the real big fat one. There's a skinnier
Yeah.
one that doesn't last as long. I got the bigger, fatter one, and it works really nicely. But something like that. Always remember when you're on the road and using cameras, you want the extra battery. And guess what else you want extra? SD cards. You know, so you can
Yes.
put on here, depending again on your resolution, 2, 3, 4 hours worth of video on here. When you get up into 4K, you're talking less than an hour, but usually you don't need to shoot at 4K right now. I
Mm-hmm.
think 4K is good
Yeah.
in some areas, but oh, and by the way, this one also has another feature I didn't mention here, but I should. So right here, there's a little camera that you can do on the side, so you can have the camera on you while it's also out there, and you're a picture in the lower left corner. So now you're
Ooh,
talking, saying, "Well, tell me, Bob, what do you think about da da da?" And then Bob is over here, and you're actually recording him. So
that's snazzy.
had some really
That's
nice
bonus nerd points, Terry.
bonus nerd
Yeah.
point. That's right. And we're not charging you any extra, folks, because you're joining us here today. No extra charge, just part of the value that we give you here.
That's so
Oh
funny.
my.
So, Sierra, how
Bonus
about
nerd.
what's next on your mind of on cool new technology or really cool thing that you've seen this year?
So this actually comes more in the scary doom and gloom side of things.
Oh,
I'm
Dun, dun,
going to take
dun.
things down a notch.
Bum, bum,
In the
bum.
scary doom and gloom side of things, we have had a significant increase in hacking
yeah.
this year. And that's not something that's going to stop. So when I start looking at the things that make me excited in a I feel safe and I can sleep at night kind of way,
Mm-hmm.
that's when I come into security, online security. And there's two technologies that I use to keep myself safe online. The first is a password manager. I happen to use LastPass. And LastPass works really well on the iPad and the iPhone, those being, of course, the platforms that I use primarily, um, because that allows me to actually have a strong, secure password that is different for every site. Now, the last time I looked, I had somewhere around 370 different passwords stored in LastPass.
Hmm.
There's probably more than that because I usually end up adding one or two passwords a day, just because of various sites that pop up and things. And that's a huge security hole if you don't actually have separate passwords. I was talking to a speaker a couple of days ago who was very excited because their brand new virtual assistant got all of their social media and email sites set up and had all the passwords synchronized and the same
Oh,
across all of these platforms.
So
oh,
tell
what?
us why that's an issue, Sierra. I think that's important.
Oh,
Pull that out. Why
it's
is that important?
okay. So if you look at how a hacker attacks your account, almost every time they don't know what your password is for the first time. But if they go to your email account, for instance, they can hammer that just trying to guess what your password is. And if your password is, say, one of the most popular passwords that's ever used, which is the word password,
Mm-hmm.
uh, they're going to guess all of the common ones first. Once they've got a password, they can almost always use that to get another password. So if I've got your email password, now I can get your Facebook password, even if it's different, honestly, because that means that I can go to Facebook and I can say, reset my password. And it's going to send that reset notice to the email account that I just hacked. And now I can control your Facebook. Then I can control your website provider account so that I can hack in and steal your website.
Yes.
And then I can hack in and I can steal access to all of your domains.
It's getting scarier all the time.
Uh-huh. And at that point, I control your virtual life because I was able to crack a password.
Yep.
And that's something that is happening more and more and incredibly scary. So password managers, the first and easiest thing that you can do is make sure that all of your passwords are long and different. And LastPass actually has what they call a security check as part of it that will evaluate all of your passwords, tell you whether or not any of them are the same. It'll tell you how long that password has been valid. So it'll, prompt you to change passwords, for instance, if it's been 3 years or something. And it can actually help you to identify how secure your online presence is by running that security check in LastPass. So that's a huge step towards being secure online. The other thing that I do, because this is a twofer on security.
That's right. It's still the same thing.
It's still security. Is because I am mobile almost all of the time, I have a VPN set up on my iPad and iPhone, a virtual private network. That means that when I'm online at Starbucks, for instance, the information that I am sending across Wi-Fi to the Starbucks Wi-Fi router to go onto the internet, generally speaking, that's in clear text, which means if the hacker is sitting at Starbucks next to me, he can actually spy on what I am sending to the internet and can steal that information en route. Via a VPN, that information that's being sent just there inside Starbucks is encrypted, which means that the hacker can't get any useful information while I'm sitting there in the Starbucks or in the airport or in the hotel lobby.
Yes,
all of those
indeed.
public places where hackers hang out and just steal that information that you are willingly giving them by attaching to all of those free Wi-Fi networks.
Exactly. And that's important, of course, for those of us that travel and we're in hotels, because you think, oh, gee, a hotel's okay. There's people that can be bad guys that are there hunting and snooping around in hotels trying to find it. Your VPN is really important.
Yes, and there's a whole bunch of different solutions that are available on the VPN front, but I do recommend checking that out as well. And VPN
What do you
stands
recommend for VPN?
Let me look and
Like
see
hear
which
from you,
one.
and Phil, you might have something you have as well.
Yeah, let me see which VPN I'm using, because I'll be honest, VPN is the kind of thing that you can set it and forget it. Essentially, once you've got it set up, you don't have to think about it. I am using VPN Unlimited, and I have the unlimited plan for that, which means I can use it on multiple devices for one subscription fee. I have it installed on my iPad, actually 2 iPads, my iPhone, and you can share accounts with other people. So for instance, my husband's iPhone is also set up on that and protected. So you get up to 5 licenses on that particular service. So that's the one I use. I use VPN Unlimited, and it was pretty inexpensive. Very
Sounds
secure.
Good. Phil, any ideas on VPN or the security that you want to have? Just we've got you here. I'm not going to let you get away without tapping to you on whenever we can.
Yeah. Security is such a long topic. I mean, we could spend hours talking about it. I think any VPN that uses better than none. You want to pay for it though, if possible. I always recommend.
Again.
Yeah. Well, again, if you want it to be around, if you want to make sure that they're not selling your data, you need to be exchanging some value for it. Otherwise, you're the product. So that's my recommendation. I also recommend that whenever possible on websites that if you have, if it's just a site that doesn't have any important information, just have a throwaway password if you're not going to use a LastPass. Because frankly, if it's a site that doesn't have my credit card info, doesn't have my address, and they want me to make an account, okay, great. So the password can be, I love Terry and Sierra 57. I mean, that's okay. But if it's something that's more important,
and
then
we love you too, 58.
Thank you. Yeah, that's a good password as well. But we really need to think about that. So if we're not going to buy LastPass, then we need to really think about, okay, can I have a throwaway for some of these accounts? And will it be an email address, frankly, that, I'm going to secure then that email address more securely?
Yeah, you raise a good point. Matter of fact, and I got the two of you here. This is an important point, and I want to kind of go in a little bit deeper on this because I know this is hot and it can really be important. I like the idea of LastPass. I use that, and usually it works. Sometimes I have a little challenge with it, but it does work. But I also found there's some things I don't want to put on LastPass, and that would include for me things that are very, very secret, like bank account or something that's financial, and I don't want the world knowing it. My thought is, if someone gets hold of my computer and for whatever reason they figure out how to get into my computer and get my LastPass, now I would be in trouble. They could get everything. So I would leave something like that in one account that is going to be much more difficult to get, and that is my brain. Because once it gets in there, it might not ever get out, But I put it in there so I remember that as a code that is just something for me, and I know it. I might have it written down somewhere else so that in the event that I'm no longer on the planet, other important people can get access to it at that kind, break glass only when this happens kind of thing. But having that, and there would be other codes, like you're saying, Phil, like for instance, I'll give a good example, a subscription that I might have in a password to a free site on the internet that provides news for me. Something that's not secret, and if the world got it, it's like, oh, so what? And so that one might be a spot 1234, my dog's name 1234 or something like that. That no big deal if they get it. But then there would be the LastPass. That could be for most things, my Facebook, LinkedIn, etc. I don't want the world knowing that, but it's not like it's going to be national security. But I have the highest level would be something I would just remember that for me only, that is financial and stuff. I'd be interested in your thoughts on that. Sarah, any ideas or thoughts on that?
Well, so I am probably, while very security minded, I am also pragmatic. And as I mentioned, I am mobile only. And one of the things that I do is, of course, on my iPad and my iPhone, I have the Find Your iPhone, Find Your iPad turned on. In the off chance that either of those devices are ever outside of my control, I can immediately wipe them. So I worry a little bit less about someone getting my iPad, for instance, because I know exactly what kind of physical security I have for that device also. I do store that kind of information. Here's the things you don't want to tell on the internet. Yes, I store my bank account information in LastPass, but I do. And it's because of my own convenience, basically, and the fact that I know that it's not stored on my device. It's stored in the cloud at LastPass and accessed on demand from my device. At LastPass, it is stored encrypted using the highest level of encryption that we have available right now. And they know how to wipe it immediately. So there are always compromises in life when you start looking at how convenient you want your life to be, how private you want your life to be, and how secure you want your life to be. You can usually pick two of those, but you can't get all three.
Yeah.
And on that particular one, I go a little bit more towards convenience for the simple fact that I don't remember it. And I've had too many cases where I need information when I'm sitting on a beach in Hawaii with my iPad and I have it.
Yes.
So
I think that's a good point. What I've heard from a lot of people that are in security, and I've read about it a little bit, and they spoke on this occasionally. I find the term layers of acceptable risk Nothing is 100% safe. I mean, wherever it is, it can get in. Hey, somebody hacked into the Department of Defense and all government information on all government employees. I mean, you think about it. There's a lot of security in that. And they got some smart people doing it. But if somebody was able to break into that, do you think they can get into the most encrypted thing that I might have? Yeah, of course. Phil, any of your thoughts on this?
Yeah, so my thought on that is this, that remember, it is only as strong as your weakest point in the chain. So Terry, if you have it set up so that your bank account can't be gotten into, I wonder where that password reset email goes to. And if it's to an email that's already logged in on your phone, it doesn't help you any that you don't save it in LastPass.
You're absolutely
because your
right.
password reset goes right back there. I mean, that's the challenge. So ultimately, if I think about security, and I get asked about that. I've consulted with some of the enormous companies on this in banking. My first thing is physical security. Okay. Physical security is the most important thing. I don't care what device you use, if you don't have good physical security, everything else doesn't matter. Because you can develop rootkits. There are things that will hash out those passwords that are stored. You're hosed. Okay, so that's step one. That's physical security, right? I would say don't give anybody your iPhone. Don't give anybody, again, don't just put your thumbprint everywhere, because that can even be copied. So be smart about it. So secondly, right along that, use LastPass or change up your passwords often enough that they can't be hacked. And then third, and this is something that I've just started doing, is get an email account that you don't have logged in everywhere. So I actually am starting to use, it's called Proton Mail. Proton Mail is extremely secure.
Proton, Proton?
Proton Mail, protonmail.com. In fact, it does have the thumbprint recognition here, so I can log in that way, but that's not my login, or that's not for, not for everybody. That's for me. So I want to encourage folks, to think about, that's the third level, but physical security is number one, right? And and that means if you have your passwords written down, that's okay, as long as you have it under lock and key in your house and your house is secure. But putting it underneath your keyboard doesn't help you any. And that, Sierra's laughing, but as well as I do, in corporate America, that's the number one. You want to look, one, look there, two, look under the desk, three, look in the top drawer.
Yep,
that's
exactly.
Three places for physical security.
That's where people will normally put it. I remember also earlier this year, I had a chance to interview the CEO of a company called YubiKey. That's YUBIKEY, YubiKey. And they have a little USB chip that you can put into your computer. And they say that most hacking is done from someone who is not physically at your computer. And so the way they use that is a double authentication, which is really nice. You have to have that key in there, and you have to be able to put in your own password, which could be from LastPass. That layer is an extra way of being secure, that if the computer doesn't have that USB chip and it doesn't have your LastPass or other password in there, they don't get access to it. And so is anything 100%? No, but that's another layer we can put in.
Well, that's basically a variety of two-factor authentication. Yes. I mean, as we start looking at ways to get more secure, I have two-factor authentication set up on every account that allows it, which includes all Gmail, both the paid and the free Gmail accounts, Facebook, LinkedIn, all of the primary places that you think about, all have two-factor authentication available. That means you have to type your password, and you also have to do something else. Usually it's something like they send a text message to your phone, and then you have to enter in that a six-digit number, something along those lines. But that can also help to keep people from being able to hack your account, because then they have to not only know your password, but they have to have that physical element that will keep them out of your accounts.
Excellent words of advice. And for those of you joining us on this, you're watching a year-end review of cool technology, and we're spending some time on security, talking with Sierra Modro, who is a genius and wonderful expert on many things technology, and also Phil Gerbyshak, who is also a genius and expert on many things. It's like we got both of these wonderful people here. I'm just excited about the whole thing. It is ringing the bells of joy in my heart to have both of them on. But Phil, I think we're now ready to go back over to you, as we walk around the virtual table here. For your next really cool technology you want to share with us.
Sure. Well, given that I work so much with the B2B folks, I think the next one that we need to think about is Facebook at work, and Facebook possibly even as a subscription. LinkedIn was bought by Microsoft. Facebook has its own ecosystem. It is the largest country on the planet almost already. And I would bet by the end of 2018, it will have more users than any other country on the planet. So that means that not only does it have users, but it has active users, which means inside an organization, perhaps they'll start to let them think about using that for work. So Facebook is beating them to the punch. They built Facebook at work. I was one of the early beta testers in February of 2016. I played with it. It's just like regular Facebook, except tagging is very different. And it also combines a lot of the elements of SharePoint, meaning you can share documents, you can share videos, you have different levels of security. And the nice thing is you don't need an administrator like you used to. So I don't see there being a CC or a FNA, a Facebook network administrator position, because it's all point and click. Whereas before we needed a Cisco administrator, we might need a Microsoft administrator. We do need people who understand risk. So risk management is still a big important thing. But I think Facebook is going to try to nudge in, steal some of Microsoft's thunder, because they have way more data than LinkedIn does. Holy cow. Probably by a magnitude of 1,000, I would guess. So if that's true, then how do we mine that? How do we make that more useful? How do we use that for sales, recruiting, retention, employee satisfaction? How do we do that? That'll be interesting. We'll see how that works.
Yeah, I think that's very important. And for those of you watching this, think about that. Whatever you're doing, whatever kind of business you're in, Facebook needs to be a part of it. Much like you can't say, oh, gee, I don't work with computers, or I'm not going to go online. No, a few years ago, we realized you got to have a website. If you've got a business, you need a website. And before that, it was you needed this technology. Well, today, it's called Facebook. And you need something, even if it's just one page that's out there. But you want to be where your customers are. I often say in my programs, if we were to go back in time, pick a year, say 1324 in Europe, and you went to a little village and you want to get a business going, what you've got to do is be where your customers are. And if they hang out at Terry's Pub on Thursday night, well, then you need to be at Terry's Pub on Thursday nights, because that's where your customers are. Today, customers are on Facebook, and there's protocols and ways to do it. Each of us talk about those kind of things of how to do it and how not to do it. So you'll want to make sure you go over to Phil and Sierra's website and look at the information they have there, and put a few coins in there too. It'll be well worth it. You'll put a few coins in and you can get a whole lot more back by listening to their stuff. So I think that would be important. Any other thoughts on that, Phil?
Well, Sarah, you were going to say something.
Yeah, I was thinking about, as Terry was saying, you have to be where your customers are. And I think there's been an artificial distinction that's been created in social marketing over the last 2 or 3 years about, Facebook is consumer and LinkedIn is for business. And that's not necessarily accurate, from the simple fact that your customers are people, and people hang out on LinkedIn, people hang out on Facebook, people hang out on Twitter. And whether they're, the VP of marketing or whether they're Joe, they're the same person and they're hanging out in different places. So I think that artificial distinction that we've created between the business LinkedIn and the personal Facebook is something that delineation is going to go away as we start moving forward, as people start doing more personal stuff on LinkedIn, because I've certainly seen that over the last year. and people are doing more business stuff on Facebook. And I think that separation between those is going to change as we move forward.
Yeah, I think that's particularly acute and true for those of us who are rendering personal services. Like all three of us are professional speakers. We also do coaching. We help people. We are known for who we are. And I think that we won't get into all the details on it, but I'll just say we've seen a political year go by. And some people got real testy, and there was some ads that were a little bit possibly over the line, some say. I think you got to be careful of that, because if you're Joe Schmo, who is a speaker, and people hear you say a political comment and they go, holy Toledo, I don't want to deal with Joe because Joe believes that, you've just hurt your business by doing that. And I think we've got to be careful and understand clearly in our own mind what we want to say, what we don't want to say, and also realize there might be certain Facebook groups where, okay, we're in this group and only those of us that are in this closed group will talk about the Oogie Womps, because that's a real sensitive subject. And Oogie Womps, boy, you don't want people knowing you're into Oogie Womps, or they'll think you're a Gookie Wogger, so we don't want that. But what you want to do is you want to make sure that you have your strategy in place and be very careful what you say and what you're exposing online. Very important. Good point. So, well, I've got a little tool that I want to share. And matter of fact, it's the tool right here that we're using. We're using this, which can go on Facebook Live when you have the right password to get on Facebook. It works really well. And when and we're using this for recording, it's called Blue Jeans on Social. They have several different products, and Blue Jeans, as one word, is the name of the company, and their On Social product is available. I'm using this for the main reason, the number one reason why I'm using it is it gives me the ability to go on Facebook Live. That is important. You keep hearing all the time about Facebook and Facebook Live particularly. Listen to what Mark Zuckerberg is saying. Listen to what Sheryl Sandberg is saying. The people that are really important at Facebook are saying they are pushing Facebook Live. So that's where you want to be. And that's particularly true for thought leaders, for people who are speakers, coaches, authors, facilitators, consultants, or other type of area where you are taking your thoughts and you share those with others, and people say, hey, I want to buy that. I want to buy your book. I want to hire you to do this. Facebook Live is something you need to do. So I'm using the tool here called Blue Jeans on Social. It costs about $500 a year for the version that I have. And then they have other versions that will scale up to bring in 100 bazillion. I think that's the exact number. 100 bazillion people on there. Actually, it might be closer to like 10 or 20,000 people. But you can check with bluejeans.com and find out from them. That's bluejeans as one word.com, and you can get all the information there. So that's a tool that I have. As a matter of fact, Sarah and Phil, I'd be interested in your feedback. You're seeing Blue Jeans and what we're doing here, knowing that it can go on Facebook Live as well as do a recording. What are your thoughts, just given that you're both virgins and you're both coming in here virgin now on Blue Jean, getting a chance to see it? What do you think, Sierra?
It's been very easy to use. I'm not surprisingly using it on iPad. They have a very easy to use iPad app that I was able to download and get installed in less than a minute. So it was very quick and easy to get set up. One of the things that I did notice from the mobile standpoint is that I think I do have a few less controls than Terry and Phil have on the desktop version. So that's something to consider as you're looking at it. If you're going to be a mobile first kind of person the way I am, then I think I'd need to look into that a little bit more to find out how it would be if I were hosting a chat like this, using my iPad Pro, how that would work out, whether I would get the additional controls. But it's been very easy to use.
Very good points. Phil?
Yeah, I would just really echo what Sierra said. It's very easy to use. The download is not substantial. I will say, though, like with anything, you need some disk space. So make sure that you have disk space before you attempt to install it. And it runs cleaner the more you have, because it kind of, the technical term is it bumps into the other programs, right? So we need to make sure.
That's the technical term of that, yes.
Yep, I didn't want to talk over anybody's head there, right? But I mean, really need to think about that. But it seems like a wonderful tool. I'm looking forward to using it. And Facebook Live, I am looking forward to LinkedIn Live, Terry, sometime in 2017. And I'm hoping that Blue Jeans or something like it is available much more rapidly for multiple people than something like Blue Jeans has been, and much more stable, because I absolutely see the value in live video, going where your customers are, whether or not we like a delineation or not. To your point, Sierra, I think enterprise is still going to block Facebook for at least another couple years, unfortunately. I mean, during the day, right? It's not just where they are, but also what time of day are they allowed there.
Well, you know, it's interesting you'd mention that, because I remember back, 5, 6 years ago, when enterprise was blocking Google Mail. They were blocking Gmail because Gmail was personal and insecure. And now, of course, we have Google at Work and the Google apps, and enterprise is everywhere with Google. So we very rapidly transitioned in that particular platform from can't have it at all to it's practically what enterprise is running on. You could end up seeing that same arc as we start looking at Facebook. We're right now at that, blocking it. It's insecure, it's personal, we don't need that at work. I think we could very rapidly transition to, yes, this is something that is a must-have because it's been hardened, it's been secured, it's enterprise worthy at this point. And so I think we're probably going to see that same sort of shift that we saw with Google Apps, we're going to end up seeing with Facebook as we move forward. So it'll be something that'll be fun to watch.
Yeah. I think it's going to be 40-40-20. I think we're going to see 40% old school Microsoft, which is LinkedIn, 40% new school, which is, what Google Apps, to your point, which is Facebook, and 20% something else. I don't know. Terry, what do you think?
I think it's going to continue to change. I think we're definitely seeing a live video. That is hot, and it's definitely going to change. Think back a year ago, as we were saying goodbye to 2015 and hello to 2016, tools like Periscope, tools like Blab were very popular. We think, hey, this is really going to go somewhere. We're going to see that. And I remember we used Blab a lot this year for some programs, and now it, bye-bye, has left us, gone away. A tool that I used for many years. Many people have asked me about iJot. That's EYEJOT, iJot. I loved it. Great. And notice I used that in the past tense. Loved. And it's because they suddenly are no longer in business. And so be aware that whatever the new tool is that's out there, it might not be around that you like right now. And if we're looking at this at the end of 2017 and we look at, okay, what's coming up for 2018, we'll be looking at it and we're probably going to see, but it's the new Eegi Weekums that just came out, this year, around April or so. Eegi Weekums or Ookie Woogies or whatever goofy, silly name they're going to use for it. It'll be some new technology. And here's the trend I'm going to predict. There's going to be a lot of kids on the internet because we all, as kids, like to do this. We're going, this is the new cool thing. You've got to get on this because remember what it was like when, pick a technology, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, or whatever, was really small. And then I got on it and it really went well. We got to be careful also before you throw everything into, this new one here is the one we got to get. But I do think that video is really something you want to look at in general. Learn the tools. I'm using Blue Jeans right here. I invested $500 roughly to say, hey, I'm going to give it a shot. It looks good for who I am, the kind of work that I do as a speaker, as a writer, and the fact that I can bring in wonderful people like Phil and Sierra to talk and share with you that I can't do with just regular Facebook Live. So that's kind of why I like using it.
What I think you're seeing there, if I could generalize that and take it back up even another level, I think that one of the reasons why live video is becoming so popular is because what we're really seeing is a trend towards people using technology to connect more and more immediately and more personally. And video allows you to connect with another person in a much more visceral way than audio does, in a much different way than reading an article. So
exactly,
that's something that we're seeing is any technology that's going to allow me to more quickly and easily connect with another human. That's the trend that we're seeing.
Absolutely. I think so. Well, those of you that are joining us, we're talking about tools and technologies that are available. I'm talking with Sierra Modro and Phil Gerbyshak, two geniuses and buddies of mine that know a lot about technology. We've gone through kind of a virtual walk around the table talking about what's there. And I want to go for our final round, or any other comment that you might want to make about what's happening in technologies, websites, apps, or something that's good, or just some of the things that we need to be aware of. And Sierra, I think we're back up to you now.
The thing that I'm keeping my eye on as I look forward is the combination of AR and VR, augmented reality and virtual reality.
Yes.
Those two are definitely different. Augmented reality is when you have a technology that allows you to interact with the space around you in an augmented way. So you may see screens that appear to be on the wall or something along those lines. It's an augmentation of reality. Virtual reality is totally immersive. It's sort of like watching a movie as opposed to living a life. You're in a completely virtual world and seeing things that may or may not exist anywhere. But that augmented reality and virtual reality are things that are really the technology is growing by leaps and bounds. One of the fun things I think we're going to see more of in 2017 are people using smartphones as part of virtual reality. They have little cases that you can put your smartphone in, and yes, mine is covered in gold glitter. You can put your smartphone in so that your smartphone can act as your screen for a virtual reality experience. And I think some of those technologies are really going to change, going back to that connection idea. It's going to change the way that we can connect with somebody who's not in front of us, and make that a much more immersive connection.
Yep, I would have to agree with you and put an exclamation mark behind that. Phil, your thoughts on any other tools or observations of where we're going as we kind of say goodbye to one year and head into another one?
Yeah, while I think live video is important, I don't think this is the year yet that many enterprises are using it for anything other than individual connection, not department wide. That's one prediction that I have. I love live video, but I also can't imagine allowing my employees to sit at a screen and just be passive with live video. So I expect that will change as we go. To your point about AR and VR, I think that's needed. I think that is likely more going to happen than more live video in the enterprise. And then as we think about how do we look at technology, I can't wait for the iPhone 8 because they have not had a major leap forward, in my opinion, since they went from the 4 to the 5. I mean, the 6 is nice and the 7 is nice, but I don't think that it's a major technological leap. And I think if they don't make an enormous splash with it, and they don't do something with the new iMacs, I think we could see Apple lose a lot of its dominance in this space because Microsoft's Windows 10 already has really good touch, really good features that are very similar, and that really attracts a lot of the brainiac side of design and smart folks like us, where we can play with that in different ways. It has been Apple, but really I don't like what they did with the new MacBook Pro. I'm waiting to buy one. If they don't do something smart with the desktop, I might end up buying a Windows machine and just get a big 40-inch monitor to play on, because I don't see the OS any better than it was 5 or 6 years ago.
Interesting you'd say that, Phil. I have to agree with you. I'm thoroughly in the Mac ecosystem. In the Apple area, I got my iPhone. I love it. I've got my iPad mini. I love it. I've got my MacBook Pro that I love, but it's getting a little older. And I buy the full Pro Care plan for 3 years that they give you on that, and I love it, but mine is over now. So I'm kind of on my own. I have to pay extra. And I thought, well, I'd probably upgrade, but I'm looking at the new one going, Yeah, and why would I get that? It's a little faster. Okay, nice. A little bit clearer. Well, okay. And they got a really cool touchpad that, well, okay, that's nice, but haven't seen anything really compelling. And I'm a big Mac and Apple fanboy in a way. I really
Yeah.
like what they're doing. I like their stuff, but I'm just concerned. And I thought, well, let's see. I might go over to the other side, maybe to a Galaxy. I was thinking like the Samsung Galaxy looks pretty good, something like that, except that I really don't need to start any fires right around here, so I'm wondering if I would need that. And then when you see signs saying, do not carry this on the airplane, it's like, oh my goodness, I'm sure glad I didn't buy one of those little rascals.
Yeah. But that's only one device, Terry. That's the thing, right? I mean, I hear you, but that's only one device. They have way better devices. The Note is not even their best seller, right? That's the thing we have to remember. Sure, they got a lot of bad press, but a lot of people are hearing Samsung really for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
And so while it might be negative, possibly, I mean, sure, yeah, if you explode, yeah, that's pretty uncool. But I think they're going to capitalize on these press impressions.
I can only tweet that one again. If you explode, yeah, that's pretty uncool. I like that. Somebody tweet that out there.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah. But that's the thing, right? It's obviously it's quite bad. But let's think about that. I have not. It's not like anybody I know has had that blow up, and I know, I'm fairly connected. I don't know, Terry, Sierra, have you had any of your friends that have had this device start on fire?
No, I do have friends, though, that are part of the press, my fellow journalists that are out there, and we really like to have a scare story. That sells a lot of copies, gets a lot of eyeballs. And when we can find one somewhere that does one thing that's really bad, then that becomes a story. And with all due respect, at Samsung, they've got some really good people. I mean, not only super smart, minds in the stratosphere, but they really care and they want to get things done, just like at Apple. They both do. Yeah. I like to see the competition. I like to see that. I think the competition is very good in every field, of course, except in mine. We don't need any competition with me. But other than that, we need it everywhere because it really helps you to get better. But by the way, in all seriousness, really we do want competition because it makes us stretch. Yes. Otherwise, it's human nature to sit back and go, hey, I'm pretty good here. I can take it easy now. I'm going to prop my feet up there on the desk and lace my fingers behind my neck, and I'll just rest. And every time I do that, that's the first sign that I'm starting to go down. I find just sure as a whirl, it does that.
Well, actually, I think that's going back to the Apple being a little stagnant right now. For the record, by the way, the best thing they did was name the new Mac OS Sierra. I thought that was a great move. I'm looking for my royalty checks.
But that's right, Sierra. They got that from you. See it, everyone. Those of you watching, that's how you'll remember Sierra Modro today.
So the Mac OS Sierra is not particularly revolutionary. The flip side, looking at competition, Windows 10 is actually pretty brilliant. I mean, there are a lot of people. Change is always hard, and Windows 10 is different than previous generations of Windows. So change is hard. That's just there. However, once you get past that initial learning curve, Windows 10 has got a lot of really nice features. And I think that the competition that Apple's going to start getting from what I think of as the new Microsoft is something that is really going to impact them. Microsoft is becoming a lot more dominant in the hardware space. Their Surface and Surface Books are getting really popular. Windows 10 has gotten to be a very strong platform. They're getting a lot better at actually integrating multiple technologies together. That was definitely a weakness before. And I think they're really starting to give Apple a run for their money on being a platform, not an OS.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that I think will end up making both companies stronger as we start moving forward.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. And so I see as we're moving forward on this, there's lots and lots of opportunities. Phil, any other thoughts or comments that you have?
Well, I would just say there's going to be some company that comes out of nowhere that's going to give us a technology that we didn't even realize we needed that will be ubiquitous in our life by the end of 2017. I don't know who that is, but I think that's a safe thing to say. I am guessing that it will be somebody who has some amazing piece of hardware, not software this year, because we've seen a lot of software innovation, but I think we're going to see some hardware innovation this year that we're going to be like, holy crap, that's incredible. And however that gets integrated with everything else is going to change the game.
Yep, absolutely. And I think for those of you that are watching this, you've heard what we've been talking about for a while now, the three of us here, and we're seeing there's a lot of important technologies. And of course, there's many more that we would love to share with you, and we will be doing that. So be sure and sign up for each of our newsletters, as we'll be sharing with you throughout the year, and watch us on social media. And by the way, I mean that seriously, because if you want to get ahead, you realize you can't do it by yourself. The old Japanese saying that we use a lot out in Silicon Valley is so true. None of us is as smart as all of us. And so you want to find those people, those groups that you can plug into. Find the coaches that you can embrace. And it might be in the way that you're just subscribing to their podcast, or you subscribe to their blog. Or maybe at this time of year, you find someone, you say, I want to join their online coaching program. I want to join this. Find the person that is right for you and get involved. I find sometimes you want to be involved in more than one. You might want one main one, but then a couple others that you'll work with. You don't want to get 40,000. You can't keep up with them all. But you want to get a few that can help you, that you trust, that you know, you like them, you trust them, and now you go to that next important level, engagement. And your engagement with them. I remember it was in 1992 that the National Speakers Association had a very special speaker come to town. The event happened to be held in Orlando. At the time, I lived in Orlando, and I came down to Orlando. I was there. I was on the committee for NSA, and that speaker that we had, I went out to the airport and picked him up as he came off of the plane flying in from Los Angeles to Orlando. His name, Tony Robbins. And Tony Robbins came in. I got a chance to be with him in the back of the limo, listening to him, what he talked about. He made the point how it's so important to be able to be willing to part with your capital. Put money into something. Too many people want something for nothing. Like we were talking about at the beginning of this discussion. They wanted it for nothing. And I realized doing that is important. I also, by the way, got a chance to then get him checked into the hotel. I was going to head back to my room. And he said, well, Terry, can you help me a little bit on my program? I thought, let me guess. Tony Robbins wants to spend time with me working on his program for tomorrow and ask me a question. I'm thinking I can work something out. I got a chance to spend about an hour and a half with him. Brilliant to watch his strategy and how he was working, because this was serious. He had to be on, and he had to be really, really good. And a group that might have been a little bit cynical and jaded about him as professional speakers. But he told me what we had done. I saw what he did, and I realized the importance of putting in the time, the money, and the energy to make something work. This is a time of year where we're seeing things kind of wind down. It's good. Take a break. Many of us are really driving hard. We also need a time where we can detach. We can kind of leave planet Earth for a little bit. Gina and I will watch more movies than the grown-ups say we can. And so we watch in our home theater here. We're watching all kinds of great videos and enjoying it. Whatever you're doing, what's ever going to be good for you, to nurture your soul, to nourish your spirit, to help you grow and be ready so that when we hit the deck running next week or whenever it's going to be for you, that you're ready to go and rested. I am honored that you joined us. Sierra and Phil, thank you so much for being with us here today. Any closing thoughts, just real quickly, you would want to add before we say goodbye to all the kids that are watching us? Sierra?
Keep your eyes open, because honestly, like Phil was saying, this will be a year of change. I mean, frankly, it always is. But keep your eyes open and watch the people who you trust and what they're doing, because that'll be a good way to judge what you should be doing as well.
Very good. Phil?
So I'm going to echo what you said, Terry, and that is invest in a coach. If you have one thing that you invest in this year, don't make it hardware, don't make it software, don't even make it a conference, but make it someone that you can work one-to-one or one in a group on, that you can move your ball forward. Because change is happening. If you can find someone that you trust, that can give you advice, that can work with you to help you move forward, that's the best thing that you can do, because frankly, you can't do this alone.
Absolutely. That's right. And one more round before we say goodbye. I want to make sure that people can get in touch with you. Given that your names are off in your website, we're going to have, I'd rather be redundantly redundant and make sure we get it. So, Sierra, how can someone get in touch with you if they want to?
Well, SierraModro.com does work. I also have a new website that is coming up at technicalfuturist.com.
Technicalfuturist.com. Sounds good.
Yes.
I
So,
like it.
yeah, those are the two ways to find me.
And for those joining us by audio, which might be a few people, please spell that carefully for those also that might not have English as their native language.
Technical Futurist, TECHINALFUTURIST.com.
There we go. You did, yeah, you're doing fine on that. That's right. And Phil, how does somebody get in touch with you?
Sure. So, of course, you can go to philgerbyshak.com. That's GERBYSHAK. The first name is Phil, PHIL. Put those together. You have philgerbyshak.com. If you want to get up-to-date news on the changes in LinkedIn and how to use it every day, go to socialsellingdailydozen.com. You'll get a free ebook there, and then I send out every week or two some insights and some strategies that you can use to make LinkedIn work for you every day.
Very good. Thank you. And I'm Terry Brock at guess where? TerryBrock.com. That's TERRY. And Brock is spelled the right way, BROCK. So Terry at TerryBrock.com. It's been just a lot of fun joining you, being here. And Sierra and Phil, thank you both for joining us and being part of this. And thank you, dear listeners and viewers, for being with us. We wish you the very best, and we look forward to hearing from you.